All right. Well, hello, families and students, if you happen to be here with us, and welcome to another one of our Families as Partners webinars. Today's session is all about academic advising. So we are so happy to have you all join us today. So just as quick introductions, these sessions are all hosted by Student Affairs New Student and Family Programs. My name is Sam Buchanan. I also have 𝗟𝗏 Roller on with us, who is our brand new program coordinator for family engagement. So families get to know her name, her face. You're going to see her around. She's going to be in your emails and hosting all of your family webinars and events throughout the next year. Additionally, our primary guest speaker today is Lauren Thomas, the Associate Vice Provost for Academic Advising Initiatives. I'll let her dive into her presentation a bit and introduce herself, but just a couple quick notes about how today's session will run. So we will turn over to Lauren for her presentation, and then at the end, we're going to dive into some Q&A. So there is a Q&A feature, a question and answer feature on Zoom that we'll be using today. If you've joined us for our other webinars, hopefully you know how this works. If not, you'll just have to look at your Zoom tool panel bar and look for Q&A. You'll be able to submit a question on there, and then we will try to run through as many of those questions as we possibly can live with you today. And the way that our sessions work is that they are all recorded, and all of our recordings are then posted on our YouTube channel, which I will share with all of you later, as long as you complete our evaluation, which I'll share at the very, very end. You will get an email with that specific link and all of the resources and details. And then additionally, if there's any questions that are unanswered by the hour time frame, once that hour is up, as long as you are signed in and your email is in there, we will email you the specific response to your question. So hang tight with us. We usually get quite a few questions, but we will try to run through as much as we possibly can. All right, I think that is all I got on my side. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. Welcome, everyone. I'll get my slides shared here so we can go through all of our topics related to academic advising. So as Sam said, my name is Lauren Thomas, and I serve as our Associate Vice Provost for Academic Advising Initiatives. And we'll walk through what this process will look like this summer, and hopefully answer any questions that are still outstanding. So again, talking about what our student success resources are here at Virginia Tech, our academic colleges, the elements of a degree to kind of give you an idea of what that degree program is going to look like and the different components that are there. In addition to transfer credit, how to get your transfer credit here, and in addition to academics and advising in general, and then resources for families. So first, to start out with, student success here at Virginia Tech is, I think, complex and wrapped around, each one of the students that we have here with us, where we want to promote students' learning and development by providing them the appropriate resources that they need to be successful. And so we really want to focus on the student persisting on to the next semester, their academic achievement, making sure they do well in their courses, and achieve their academic goals and have that holistic development. So really encompasses a lot of different resources and support systems. So some of those resources to point out within our academic success initiative area of the institution is Student Success Center. This is where we house tools and resources for students when it comes to individual tutoring. We offer group tutoring. We also have what we call academic success seminars when it comes to time management, test taking skills, study strategies, just to be sure that everybody has the support and develop those different skills that might need to be enhanced during your time in college. All of these services are included in a student's fees with no additional charges. So We do not have any additional fees that a student has to pay to receive tutoring. It's already included in tuition and fees. So please use these resources because you are already paying for them, and can be beneficial with any of the courses that a student is enrolled here at Virginia Tech. We also have our Office of Veteran Services, which that unit does work alongside our bursar's office and the registrar's office, in addition to the Department of Veteran Services, where they look in at certain paperwork, process, benefits, documentation to help support that onboarding of veteran students and military dependent, and ensure that those finances come through to make sure that students are meeting requirements for those benefits. The Office of Veteran Services also has some additional webinars that they support, again, for students that will be using benefits, located on their website. I believe they have one in about a week in June, and then another one in July, to be able to meet the team and look to see what kind of paperwork and support is offered within that unit. Next, we also have the academic advising initiatives area, which has some support services here related to research opportunities within our Multicultural Academic Opportunities Program, or MAOP for short, where we support students financially when looking at these different research opportunities, and to help support both undergraduates and graduates in these experiential learning opportunities related to research. And then lastly, we have transitional advising, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the future of this webinar, that we offer this service to students who want to meet with an advisor one-on-one, especially if they're looking to transition in between different majors. So even if a student was admitted to Virginia Tech under a particular major and has decided it may not be the best fit, we want to offer this service called transitional advising to those students to get you on the right path when it comes to selecting appropriate courses for that desired major. So I'll reference that again in the future when we talk about change of major. So moving into our different academic colleges, so Virginia Tech structure does have 8 different academic colleges, and then university studies, which is our exploratory major, which stands as its own college, so 9 total. That every student, their major has to be part of one of these undergraduate colleges. And you'll see the acronym or abbreviation to the right of each one of the colleges, which you might see in the future, and just know that that's where each one of those abbreviation corresponds with that individual college. Within each one of those colleges, there is also a structure to help support each student in the college when it comes to academics. And so each college has a dean. And they also have an associate dean related to academics that most students would most likely encounter if they were seeking to use some of our policies here within academics, or had any concerns. And then each college also has a director of advising or student support, which will also help lead academic advising within their college, but is a good person to be aware of and know who that is, so that if you do run into any challenges, you're aware of who that director of advising or student support is for your college. This could have also been the person that sent your initial communication about virtual academic advising and course registration, but if you are unaware of who this person is, you can absolutely find them on the website of your academic college. So moving into the elements of an undergraduate degree, so there are a few components here that make up your bachelor's degree for that undergraduate program. So first, you'll see our pathways to general education requirements. This is going to be comprised of 45 credit hours for every student, because these are our general education requirements. So every student does have to complete 45 credit hours. It just may be made up of different coursework depending on what your major is. But these are going to be your foundational general education requirements. Then you also have a core degree and major requirements, which again is going to vary based off of the major that you are pursuing. Then you also have minors or option requirements that may or may not be applicable to every degree here at Virginia Tech. Some programs do require that students have a minor. Some programs have options as part of their major. So again, the credits can vary, and some programs don't even have a requirement for a minor or have options. So again, something that may or may not be applicable to your program. And then lastly, we have free electives. So these credits can also vary and again, may not be applicable to all degrees. But free electives, there essentially is not a list of free electives. The free electives are going to be any courses that do not fit into any one of the other three areas. And so sometimes programs have a large number of free electives, some have very little to none. So again, it's going to depend on your degree. Um, these free electives, though, for some of those programs are what's going to take you to the total of 120 hours that are needed for a degree, and that's at the minimum. Some majors do require that you have more than 120 credit hours. It could be that it's 125, it could be 130. So again, knowing what that minimum number of credit hours is for your degree is helpful, especially when thinking about free electives, but knowing that you have to, everybody has to have a minimum of 120 to complete a bachelor's degree. So moving on to transfer credit. So transfer credit, if you have any, and this does include any AP, IB, or CLEP exams, can be viewed in your Hokie SPA under the grades menu. So transfer credit is only going to be awarded from official transcripts sent by that degree granting institution or an official score report. So even if you have high school transcripts sent, if you have unofficial transcripts sent, we can't award based off of those documents. It does have to come straight from that degree granting institution. We find this a lot with dual enrollment because that is essentially taken through the high school, but it also has to be attached to typically a local community college. And so the transcripts have to come from that community college. We cannot award based off of high school transcripts. Same thing with score reports. Those do have to come from College Board or the testing agency directly to allow us to grant credit based off of those score reports. So just making sure that you have those documents sent in a timely manner when you're able to. Most of our AP credit reports do come to us electronically and will not get here until early July. So as long as you've made that request, though, to have them sent to Virginia Tech, then you should be in a good space, and we just need to wait until those are released from College Board. You can also check out our transfer guide for additional details. So if you're curious prior to meeting with an academic advisor how your dual enrollment might transfer here, the transfer guide link that is listed here on the website or on the screen that you're looking at takes you to our transfer guide, which is housed on our registrar's website. And you can look for both VCCS, the Virginia Community College System, as well as other 4-year or 2-year schools in Virginia or outside of the state of Virginia, and see if we've had that course transfer here before. And you'll be able to see how and what kind of credit you would be receiving for that course here at Virginia Tech. For any kind of transfer credit to be awarded, you do have to earn a grade of a C or better in that course to receive credit at Virginia Tech. C minuses unfortunately do not count. So just making sure that you have the appropriate grade for that. Now, students, I would recommend that they communicate this information to their advisor that they work with during summer advising, because again, as I've mentioned, it could take a bit for those transcripts to be evaluated because a lot of students and a lot of transcripts over the summer. So it takes some time for the registrar's office to process those. But we do have tools so that you can anticipate what credit you will get. To help with that advising process and know what courses to register for fall. So just making a note of those is always helpful when meeting with your advisor of what the course was, what school it was, or what the AP exam was, and what the score that you think you got or can remember would be helpful. So, next steps when it comes to the self-reported academic record or the SRAR and transcripts. Um, so it's going to be a little bit different depending on if you're a first year student straight out of high school or if you are a transfer student. So first year students should update your self-reported academic record as soon as you are able to, because again, we know that some schools are still in session, so just waiting until you're able to update those with final grades, and to submit those high school transcripts as soon as you're able to, where everything is finalized, because that will have to be received by the Office of Admissions. For our transfer students, again, you will also want to update your SRAR to include your spring grades that you just received and any summer enrollment that you might plan on doing prior to coming to Virginia Tech. And to make sure that you have those official transcripts received by June 15th. So that's just in a couple days to make sure that that was sent and received, just so that we're able to start processing things and getting courses finalized. Um, the self-reported academic record is in your applicant portal, so you can go back in there and select the continue button from the bottom of that SRAR home tab and then click on update SRAR. Because any additions or corrections will only be submitted from what you update on your SRAR once you click that review and submit button within the SRAR. So just making sure that you update that in addition to having your official transcripts and score reports sent. All right, so during your advising session this summer, it will most likely be recommended that you complete 15 credit hours per semester. Um, We usually recommend this for various reasons, but typically when students are in 15 credits per semester, there's a higher GPA, that they're more engaged and graduate on time. Of course, there could be some situations where you're not enrolled in 15 credits. So again, not necessarily a requirement, but something that we highly recommend just so that you can be on time to graduation and have that higher GPA and be more engaged in other activities. So with that in mind, we also recommend that not over the summer necessarily, but once you get here in the fall semester and start meeting with your academic advisor, we highly recommend that students complete what we call an academic plan. And we have a tool called Hokie GPS, or Graduation Plan for Success, that we have students complete. Again, it's an electronic academic plan that students can go in and fill in all the requirements of their degree for each term, so they can have an idea of when they need to take certain classes, when are those classes offered, do they need to take a summer course, do they have the option for a study abroad experience, can they do an internship, like where does everything fit in? Because I think it's a lot easier to have that plan up front and to make modifications to it as you move through your time here at Virginia Tech, so that you have an end goal in mind and can see where all these other opportunities and experiences could potentially fit in. So having that initial plan and being able to modify it as you go through um, is always helpful. And I think can also help answer some questions such as, do I have to take summer classes, or what do the sequence of these courses need to look like, just so that you have that from the get-go. Okay. So changing majors. During the summer, again, as mentioned, students were admitted based off the major they applied to at Virginia Tech. So students will be advised based off of that admitted major. Um, the reason for this is we want you to have that connection with that person who's in the major and college that you are currently in. Because if you were to do any paperwork or have any concerns or issues with any academic policies, that's who you need to go to, is your college that you were admitted under, in addition to meeting with your academic advisor. So making that connection over the summer so that you know where to go for help. But as mentioned before, if students feel as though their admitted major may not be the best fit, and have already considered making changes, that change of major, the official change of major application beyond any previous change of major timeframes, will be available come December. So students will have to stay in their current admitted major, but the first opportunity to make any adjustments to your major would be in December. However, in the meantime, if you do decide that what you're in right now is not what you want to be in and take courses in, we do have options for that over the summer because we want to get you on the um, right foot from the very beginning. So if you are looking to change outside of your admitted college, so for example, if you're in Pamplin College of Business, but you just want to change to a different major within Pamplin College of Business, then your advisor can help you with that. But if you're looking to change outside of Pamplin College of Business, then that's where transitional advising comes in. Um, so transitional advising, again, can meet with you one-on-one to discuss what that new potential major could be, and to also talk through what some applicable classes would be for the fall semester that you potentially could register for. It just depends. Um, and so those would be the two options. Transitional advising availability has also opened this week. So if that is something of interest, our transitional advisors do have that availability out there throughout the entire summer. So again, we still recommend you meet with your current advisor, but then can also supplement that with a transitional advising meeting to talk about specifics when it comes to courses. I also wanted to touch on some of the technology, just to make you aware, because you'll most likely be using it during orientation as well, is Canvas. So this is Virginia Tech's learning management system. So most of your classes are going to be in Canvas for the fall semester, and this is a platform that we also use during orientation. Or registration and advising during the summer, which will walk you through some modules potentially within your college, maybe some checklist items. But we house this in the Canvas site, and we do have tutorials on that technology within our student advising website, which I'll show you closer to the end just so that you can find that information as well. So, what is academic advising? So, advising at Virginia Tech, like it says here, is a collaborative process because it's going to be that relationship and interaction between the student and the advisor. Because we want to empower students to make choices, but also give you all the resources that the student needs. So, being able to have that relationship with your advisor and explain, what you are hoping to get out of your time here at Virginia Tech. What are some potential obstacles that you're running in throughout your semester? Because we don't, as advisors, get any of your course information, such as attendance. We don't get grades, so we're really reliant on students letting us know when they're hitting a roadblock so that we're able to help with those resources, get you connected to tutoring, or any other relevant resources depending on your situation. So be sure that you have that relationship with that person within your college, just so that when you do run into some challenges, you have somebody that you're able to go to find out what those additional resources or next steps might be. Okay, so moving on to fall course registration, and some things that have already or should have already taken place. So every student should have already received communication to their VT email account from their academic college regarding virtual academic advising and course registration. So this email could have came from, again, somebody in a leadership role within the college. It could have came from your specific academic advisor. It varies depending on which major and college that you're in, but should have received something within your VT email. And most students, if not all, should have received an invitation to join a Canvas site, the technology that I just talked about, where there's modules for your college. Again, which is sent to your VT email account, because there might be some college specific tasks that you need to complete prior to having an advising appointment. And so we just want to make sure that you have your VT email set up, that you're checking your VT email, because that's where all of this communication is going within the or for the student. So making sure that all of that is set up, which hopefully by now it is, but making sure that it's being checked frequently. And on June 11th, registration for courses did open for students for the fall semester. And that, registration doesn't have to be complete. You shouldn't necessarily today have a full schedule for fall. The reason we open registration before advising appointments is because we don't want to keep students from being able to register if they want to try that on their own. I think this time is all about exploring what the technology looks like, seeing what courses are out there, being able to do that registration, but then knowing that you still have to meet with an academic advisor to confirm what you've registered for is accurate and to learn the other basics of your program. Um, Being that there are over 7,000 students that we are onboarding in the summer, it makes it a little challenging to get all of those appointments in a timely manner. We don't want to keep students from being able to register for courses, which is why um, we do registration at the same time as our appointments open. And knowing that your fall schedule can have many changes made to it over the summer, especially as you might be getting transfer credit in, AP credit, can make those modifications all the way through the summer. It does not have to be set in stone. So if yesterday you all sat down to register for one class, that's great. And as you meet with your academic advisor, can work on completing that schedule over the summer and does not have to be a finalized schedule as of yesterday. Um, and so just being aware that it is open all summer and that you can make changes, and that you do want to make sure that when you meet with your advisor, you confirm what should be on your schedule so that we can make sure again that you are going to be making timely progress towards your degree. Okay, so the Alex placement. This may be applicable to some folks, and it will not be applicable to all. So with the Alex placement, it's only intended for students who need to take calculus of a single variable, math 1225, and or general chemistry, which is chemistry 1035 and 1045, as part of their admitted major. So students who are in majors that require one or both of these courses should have received an email about the ALEX placement test. Now, this ALEX placement test is focused on um, giving an idea of whether or not your math skills are going to allow you to be successful the first time that you take calculus and the first time that you take chemistry. Because we don't want to set students up for failure in their first semester. So we want to make sure that you have the skills, the math skills, to be successful in those two courses from the very beginning. So the ALEX placement, as you see here on the screen, is an assessment that will allow you to take it up to 3 times. There are specific passing scores, if you will, for math and chemistry. They are separate scores, but it is one assessment. Um, so just keep that in mind that there are not two tests. It is one placement for both math and chemistry. It just depends on the score that you receive from that assessment of whether or not you will be eligible to enroll in general chemistry or whether you'll also be eligible to enroll in calculus. Now, this assessment or placement test is only for those who need to take calculus and chemistry. If you already have credit for one or either of those courses, you do not need to take the ALEX placement. So if you have transfer credit, if you're anticipating AP credit that will give you the general chemistry and the calculus of a single variable credit, you do not need to take ALEX placement. It's only if you need to take those courses do you take the ALEX placement exam. So just keep that in mind. And then lastly, if you are in a major that does not require calculus and does not require chemistry, you don't take the placement test at all because you have no need to take those courses. Um, so no need to take the ALEX placement. Okay. So families as partners, um, I think, some reminders that might be helpful that you could assist with, as students are just finishing up high school or other transfer work for another institution. There's a lot going on in the summer, in anticipation of coming to Virginia Tech. So just making sure that students are updating their self-reported academic record, the SRAR, complete virtual orientation through new student and family programs, which is due by July 31st. Completing any of those college-specific tasks that were outlined by your college and potentially in a Canvas course. And then also preparing for registration by viewing those registration and advising resource tutorials on our student advising website, which again, I'll get to at the end. Um, and then last but not least, but the most important, is to check your Virginia Tech email because that's where all of our communication is going, even throughout the semester. Summer. As you meet with your advisor, what they typically also do is go through schedules throughout the summer, especially if you have questions to confirm that things are accurate or that you're enrolled as a full-time student. And if there are any issues or concerns, then again, they'll email your Virginia Tech email. So start to get into the habit of checking that as you get closer to arriving here in Blacksburg, is that the only way that we communicate. Some resources for students and families. A couple things to highlight here that I think will be helpful to peruse and see what's here before you come to Blacksburg is our academic calendar, which has important academic deadlines such as when's the last day to drop a class, when's the last day to add something, when is fall break, those kind of things that you want to be aware of on the academic calendar, just so that you're aware of some of those deadlines, which again, we communicate, but maybe put them in your planner so you have an idea of when those tasks are taking place when you arrive in Blacksburg. Academic planning workshops, we do offer those in the fall, again, to have an idea of what your time at Virginia Tech might look like. So planning that out and determining what your experience is going to look like. We do also have an advising handbook on our student advising website. It looks like what's down on the bottom right of your screen. Our handbook covers a lot of policies. It also has some Virginia Tech language in here that we tend to use. It has academic standing in here. So things to look at along with additional resources that I didn't cover today that would be helpful in that advising handbook. Our Cook Counseling Center, which offers therapy sessions of multiple kinds, individual and group, just to be aware of what's there. So when you arrive on campus, you know what is available. In addition to knowing that we have online counseling through Timely Care as well. So again, just being mindful of what those resources are that are available to you. Um, FERPA. So this is another one to have a conversation with your student prior to coming to Blacksburg. So FERPA is our Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. It is something that is applicable to all educational institutions, not just colleges, but I think it is a little bit more relevant here just as, families necessarily aren't a huge aren't part of the process here in college as much. And so if you're calling to ask specific questions about your student and their academics, we are unable to give that information out without having a FERPA passcode. So this FERPA passcode is something that you would create with your student because you can find it in Hokie Spa. So anytime that you call, email, anything, we have to confirm that it is actually you and that there is a FERPA passcode on file. And so just make sure that you have that conversation, how information is going to be shared between you and your student, because we're not the ones to do that. So we need to make sure that you all have that conversation and what those expectations are. But then to have that FERPA passcode on hand so that we're able to share information as we are able to, as long as we have that FERPA passcode. So conversation to have prior to coming to Blacksburg. Um, we do also have our Hokie Family Hub, which is in the top right-hand corner, that we partner with new student and family programs on by highlighting information throughout the academic year on the student success community, as well as the military service and dependent community, I believe, for our Office of Veteran Services. Um, that we will post things throughout the academic year to let you as families know what is happening around campus, which could be a point of conversation with your student just to, hey, I saw that there was this event that went on, or, it looks like midterm grades have come out, or, to have that conversation to know what is happening here on campus, to check in with your student about. So make sure that you follow those communities because we post on there pretty regularly. We also, again, don't forget the Student Success Center that offers tutoring in various group and individual styles. And then lastly, our services for students with disabilities, which will aid any student who may have had an IEP or a 504 to get accommodations. It does require paperwork to be uploaded, which you don't want to wait to do that when you get here to Blacksburg. So make sure that this happens over the summer so that all of this is processed prior to heading into your classes so that you um, have that already set and ready to go. So here is this talked about student advising website that I think I've referenced about 4 or 5 times now. So easily can be found on student.advising.vt.edu. That houses all of most of the resources that I've talked about today, including those tutorials for registration and advising resources. In addition to our advising handbook, our academic planning workshops are here, how to find your degree, or not degree, advisor, major exploration. So lots of information that can be found on the student advising website, that I would recommend bookmarking so that you have the information readily available. And then that wraps up what I'm covering for the summer experience. Our contact information is here on the screen for our general advising at VT email, which comes to our office, and our phone number. But now I think we'll move to the Q&A. So if you have a question, and I'll navigate over to the Q&A as well, to help answer any questions that you all might have. All right. Screen's out of the way here. Sorry. Okay. So it looks like the first question that is on here, so it looks like there's only a handful. So the first question that is on here is, once VT receives AP or IB scores, how long does it take to find out if they're receiving credit? And then how would this impact registering for fall classes? So AP and IB scores are sent here electronically, so it's pretty fast. But I'd probably say about the second week of July, maybe into the third, just pending all things transferring over correctly, would be in middle to late July. But what I would recommend is, if it is a major specific course, and your advisor will most likely tell you this as well, if it's a major specific course, I always suggest registering for it just to have it on hand, and then you can always go in and drop it later if you do end up receiving AP or IB credit for it. If it's one of the general education classes that's not necessarily major specific, then is always an option to begin with in general, then I would I would recommend just skipping over that class. But if it's major specific, would highly recommend that you register for it and can always make changes later. Can a student register in Math 1224, the one below 1225, if the student doesn't want to take Calc in the fall? Sure. So the math course number is actually 1214. The Math 1214 is our pre-calculus or preparation for calculus, for Math 1225. And so if the student's major does require 1225, but they're not ready for it, they could take, or don't feel as though they're ready for it, they can always take that Math 1214 in the fall semester. ahead of taking 1225. Since my son's AP calculus grade isn't issued till July, does that mean he still has to take the placement test for his major, which it require the placement test for the course that the major requires? Um, so I always leave this up to the student. You have two options, and if you're certain that you did well on that AP exam and that you're fairly certain you would have credit for that Math 1225, then you don't have to take the ALEKS placement test. But I always hate for students to put themselves in a predicament that they don't end up with that grade and they haven't taken the ALEKS placement test. Then, it's just going to take time to take that test. So I leave it up to the student of how confident you feel about your AP exam. But if you're able to, I always recommend just having that ALEKS placement test taken, just as a backup, um, so that you have that as again, backup if you don't have the AP score. If student is an engineering major, they complete both math and chemistry ALEKS. There's okay, two chats and a link. Okay, yep. So the ALEKS placement again is one test for both subject areas. However, they do have two separate websites because they do have two separate scores. So it's just one placement test. And I think I'm answering another question on here too, but the placement test is online. You do not have to be here in Blacksburg. So it's something that you do take online. You can find out the information on both of those links that were put into the chat so that um, you can see how this works by taking it online wherever you are located. But it's one placement test. They have two separate scores to qualify to take the math or chemistry, and just some FAQs on there. So again, two separate websites with separate information, but it's still only one exam. And that's online. The deadline for AB transfer credits is prior to the release of spring AP exam results. Should we send scores currently available and then a second round? It's up to you. I think it just depends on, what was in your first round versus your second. Would it impact registration? Um, but usually we don't get any of our AP scores until July. So if you want to wait, you certainly can. If you want to send it in two separate batches or a second round, then that's up to you. It's just if it's a course that would be a prerequisite for any of the major courses that you're trying to register for, we can't do anything until we have the official scores. So I think it's just dependent on um, what what courses you're trying to register for. Do we need to send our transcripts ourselves, or would sending it through Parchment work as well? Parchment works just fine. Just somehow the official transcripts need to get here, whether you send them, bring them, whatever. It just needs to be official and however you want to send them. Adding a second major the same as changing a major, which is completed in December. I mean, obviously they're a little bit different, but adding second majors, I would absolutely wait until you get here in the fall semester to start working with your advisor before that's something that you declare. It certainly can be part of the conversation during the summer, but declaring it can vary just depending on what major that you're choosing. So a summer potential, just let your advisor know, but nothing to do until the fall semester anyway. If a student has already enrolled in business calculus, would he need to take the ALEKS placement? No, it's not for business calculus, so no need to take the ALEKS placement. What if you need the 4 or 5 on the AP for math? Do they register in late July if they get that score? So if you have the appropriate AP score to get credit for Math 1225, then you wouldn't necessarily end up taking Math 1225. And you wouldn't necessarily be able to enroll in Math 1225 unless you had the ALEKS placement. So if you feel you will end up with a 4 or a 5 on the AP for Math 1225, it's up to you whether you take the ALEKS placement or not. So again, I think just a conversation for you to have with your advisor to talk about those individual situations when it comes to the score and whether or not to register for that course, because I think it also depends on your major. So, are SRAR updates only required for class changes this past spring or also for final grades? You also want to update it with final grades in addition to having those transcripts in. We need to update it in both places. To confirm, we go to Hokie GPS to know what courses to register in. No, so Hokie GPS is going to be a system that after you get here in the fall semester, you will actually plan out the courses you want to take in which term. The requirements for your major should be within the course or college information that you received, but you can also find them in the undergraduate course catalog. So just I would, again, Hokie GPS is not going to tell you what classes you need because you're going to create that plan. So I would look through all the college specific information that they sent you. Um, my daughter tried to sign up for H&FE yesterday and all sections were full. Is that something her advisor can help her with? Absolutely. Depending on what the student's major is, the advisor would be the next person to go to see what to do about registering for that course. Yep. The Alex placement slide indicates credit is needed for both courses to be exempt, but in presentation it was stated if have credit for either, it's not needed. So if your son's in Pamplin anyway, depending on what major, the Alex placement slide that I showed here, it's one exam that has two separate scores depending on the math and calculus or the math and chemistry. So you're going to have a specific score for ALEKS placement depending on if you need the calculus or chemistry. So if you're in Pamplin, Pamplin does not require chemistry, so I'm assuming it's the calculus. So you would have to have the um, calculus appropriate score, which is 80 or higher, to be able to enroll in calculus. If you're in, oh, one of the Pamplin majors that does require Math 1225. The business calculus is a totally different calculus that does not require ALEKS placement. So again, it's really going to depend on what specific major and course that you're referencing for that, but it's just for the Math 1225 and the Chemistry 1035 and 45. Do you have to take the ALEKS placement before registering for any courses? The ALEKS placement is just for being able to register for the Math 1225 and the chemistry. That's it. Nothing else requires you to take the ALEKS placement to register for classes. Is there a way to see that transcripts have been received while waiting for approval? There should be notification in your Hokie SPA about this information. Otherwise, you can contact the Office of Admissions. So I would, those are the two things of either looking in Hokie SPA or Office of Admissions. Um, my son's advisor recommended he register for a list of classes, most of which is not interested in taking before any advising meeting has taken place. Is there some advantage to signing up for classes now before the meeting, even if they will all be dropped later? Um, it's advantage to registering for now. There might be fewer seats in a specific class or fewer seats at a time that your son wants to take a course if you were to wait. But again, I think it's always worth, initially going with and trying registration, seeing how it works for that list that the advisor recommended, but knowing that you can always make adjustments later. So, again, really up to you. I think it's just there might be less seats at a preferred time of a class or less seats in a preferred class that the student wants to take. But other than that, really no advantage or disadvantage. Are there any risks to not be able to register or lack of availability as students delays registering till mean? Okay, so essentially what I had just mentioned is that waiting is fine. It just could be that there are less seats in a desired course or a desired time. But other than that, nothing is keeping a student from waiting. Would any class they get AP credit for that isn't a major class nor a pathways class category they need to apply for their general electives, or are there restrictions around that? No, any course that does not apply to any area within the program would be considered just a general free elective that counts towards your overall 120 hours to graduate. So as required by my major, student needs to take the ALEKS placement test for chemistry and calculus. So that's two separate tests. So it's one test with two separate scores. You have to have a score of a 61 to enroll in chemistry and a score of 80 or higher for calculus. So if you score a 75 on this one test, you can only register for chemistry and you cannot register for calculus. So if you take the ALEKS placement test and you score at 80 or higher, that allows you to enroll in chemistry and calculus. So it honestly is going to depend on what your score is on this one assessment, of whether or not or what classes you can enroll in between chemistry and calculus. The LLC Intro to Data Science 1 credit class required was full. Will there be another one offered? So that would be something I would reach out to your LLC coordinator about, which you should have received some kind of communication from, because that will be up to the LLC and something to reach out for them. If and when the student obtains the necessary score on the ALEKS test, how is that transmitted to Virginia Tech? Is it automatic? Nope. So it's automatic. Our math and chemistry department work to process all of those scores and get them into our system here. So nothing to do other than just follow the directions on the ALEKS placement website for completing the exam. If my student should need tutoring throughout his time at Tech, is there an online list of tutors available or will he need to go in person? Sure. So we don't list our tutors on the Student Success Center website. So I would recommend coming. Well, you can look online to schedule an appointment through the Student Success Center for tutoring. You can always come in person, but we do recommend registering for an appointment ahead of time. We do also have an online resource called NAC Tutoring, which hires our students to do tutoring as well virtually. So that's always an option too. But we do highly recommend scheduling a tutoring appointment ahead of time because we do not have drop-in tutoring available necessarily and want to make sure the student gets what they need. Lastly, what are Pathways classes? So Pathways classes are going to be courses that will satisfy any of those concepts within Pathways. There should be in the I'm blanking on it. Online orientation through new student and family programs. There should be a component in there that talks about Pathways courses and references that, as well as your college specific information too, because it just means that those courses will apply somewhere in Pathways. And so it's really going to depend on your major, what the requirements are for that. So I think that's something that would be probably better explained by your advisor depending on what your major is. So I think that wraps up my Q&A. Um, okay, one more. Where do we find required courses? That there is a term roadmap. The term roadmap is in the undergraduate course catalog. So something that you can find there with all program requirements and recommended semesters of when to take that. So. All right. Well, I appreciate you all asking great questions because I know it can be a bit confusing. So really try and provide that information to you all so you kind of know next steps and what recommendations are. But I will turn it back over to Sam. Thanks again for having me and good luck. And email us, of course, with the email on the screen if you do have any additional questions.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all one more time here. All right. So just to wrap us up in the last few minutes that we have together today. So big picture, these family webinars are a part of our broader orientation experience. So orientation here at Tech is not just a singular day event, but a collection of various events and programs and resources. So I'm going to highlight just a few of them real fast. Also, please note that if you are attending Zoom and there's an email connected to this Zoom, you will receive an email from us with the link to the recording. So you're going to have all of this information, including these slides that I'm about to run through pretty quickly. Additionally, if your email is not associated to your Zoom account, don't worry. As long as you fill out our evaluation survey at the end, there's a chance for you to put your email address in that survey. It is not going to be connected with the evaluation results, but we will take that email and make sure to send you everything that you need. All right, so we have something at Virginia Tech called the New Student Checklist. This is the best possible way that your student and you can really follow along to see what is next and how to stay on track throughout your transition as a student. This website, for example, does link to a number of academic resources that Lauren talked about today. So please make sure that you are getting on this website. The main website is called nowwhat.vt.edu, and then that website is the home to that checklist. So there are monthly items for you all to keep track of. And then, of course, as Lauren mentioned, we have virtual orientation. This opened on May 1st, and it is due by the end of July. This is mandatory for students. So students, if you're hanging on there with us tonight, please make sure that you are getting this done by the end of July. Do not delay on getting this completed. You don't want to start off on a bad foot. And then families, we would love to have you all also complete the modules. They are almost identical to the student version, so that way you can see what the information is, and you are getting connected to Virginia Tech as well. Additionally, we have our platform called the Hokie Family Hub that Lauren introduced to you earlier. This is the best way to get connected and stay connected with us throughout the entire year. This is your primary source of information and connection to a lot of campus departments such as academics, well-being, residential life, etc. One big potential change from K through 12 life to college student life is that families will likely receive much fewer emails compared to maybe what you're used to before. And so this is a good place to make sure that you are still getting those regular emails, you know what is happening, and that you have direct connection to the university. And then we also invite you to join us on our socials. Our Facebook account is geared more towards our families, so please join us there, Virginia Tech New Student and Family Programs, or just search Hokie Families. And then our Insta families, you're welcome to join us, but it's definitely more geared towards our students. And then there is something called the Hokies on Track app. And so we invite you to join us on this app, download the mobile app. So you can find this either on the Apple App Store or Google Play. Students will be using this heavily during weeks of welcome, and families will primarily be using this during family weekend. And we also really want you to celebrate with us. And so we have a new website this year where we have some downloadables available for you. And so there are images there either for phone backgrounds, desktop backgrounds. Let's see, there are postables for Instagram, Facebook, etc. So there is a lot of really good information for you. And then we do have a couple more webinars that we would like for you all to join. And so if you are hopping on with us, please make note. We have, let's see, 2 more left. So we have a housing, move-in, and billing session. This is billing related to housing. And so please take note of that. It will be focused on housing and dining. That will be on Tuesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. And then we have another one with residential well-being, move-in, and weeks of welcome. And that will be hosted on July 8th at 6 p.m. Additionally, if you are looking for webinars related to university and financial aid and scholarships, Hokie passport services, and the Bursar's office, they do a series of webinars called Money Matters, and we are going to include that in our email that you're going to get for us in a little bit. And there's one more slide here, my favorite one. I would say that it was the most important. And I'm going to pull this up for you in a second. All right, so we have something called new student visits. So for students, students will have to register. So families just take note of this website link, save it, and send it to your students. But we invite you to join us for an optional but in-person visit in Blacksburg. Our programs are running from July 7th to 27th. So that's happening Fridays, Mondays, and then on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. It's a day-long-ish program, and this is students and families' chance to get connected with their peers, get connected with orientation leaders, and really learn a lot about student life. We know that students mentally are in a much different place in the summer to soak in information and really get a feel for campus and start to build that sense of belonging and that connection to campus. And so that's where we invite you to join us for new student visits if your schedule allows. If you cannot join us in person, that is okay because this is absolutely optional. We do have virtual options happening on Thursdays, and you would register at that exact same link. All right, and with that, we will wrap up for today. There's a QR code on the screen right now, and we will also go ahead and put in the chat the link for our evaluation. If you could please evaluate the webinar, this will let us know how to improve for the future, and also there is a chance for you to enter in what topics you might be interested in next. So we will continue these webinars in the fall and spring. So please tell us what you are interested in. And with that, I will close us out. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you all have a wonderful evening. It looks like I do see one more question on here when people are hopping off. Will the housing webinar cover cadet housing? Nikki is the director for housing services who will be joining us, and she does know quite a bit in and out about cadet housing. I'm sure she'll be able to answer your questions. If you are thinking about specifically like rules and policies related to the Corps cadets, not necessarily housing, that might be best answered by the Corps cadets directly, and we can include their website and contact information for you. You're welcome. All righty. I think people are slowly hopping off. I'm not seeing any last minute questions pop up here. Lauren and Clara usually hang out just to see if anybody puts anything in there. But I think we're good. I'll give it another minute and then I think we're all free to go. Thanks for joining, Trisha. All righty, sounds good. I think we're gonna call it. All right. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye.